Did you know this CIA document does indicate that the U.S. was prepared to use the Apollo 17 mission, and possibly earlier ones like Apollo 14-16, as an opportunity to gather reconnaissance photography over foreign nations, including the Sino-Soviet bloc, if a lunar landing became impossible and the spacecraft had to remain in Earth orbit? Here's what stands out. Key takeaways. 1. Contingency plans with intelligence value. The Apollo 17 Earth Orbital Contingency Mission was a backup plan if the mission failed to reach the Moon. In that case, the astronauts would conduct useful experimentation, including Earth survey photography, a phrase often used in intelligence and surveillance contexts. 2. Targeted regions. The memo lists countries like Spain, Ethiopia, South America, Central Australia, and Northern Africa as photography targets. But more notably, it explicitly states, orbits between 40° and 40° latitude will place the spacecraft over much of China and a small portion of the USSR. 3. Photography of adversaries considered and justified. Although previous missions had not photographed the Sino-Soviet bloc due to political sensitivities, NASA and others, likely the CIA or NRO, argued. Other nations, including the Soviet Union, were already doing orbital photography. The ERTS-1 satellite, Landsat-1, had already normalized Earth imagery from space. Gemini and meteorological satellites had already taken photos over China and the USSR. They sought approval for ad hoc photography of these regions, emphasizing lighting conditions and film limitations as constraints. 4. National Reconnaissance Office, NRO. Involvement. The NRO, which was responsible for U.S. spy satellites, had reviewed and had some reservations, implying this was borderline intelligence gathering under civilian cover. 5. High-resolution imaging. Apollo 17 would have carried cameras capable of 10 to 40-meter resolution, significantly better than typical Earth observation satellites of the time. This level of detail would have clear military or strategic value. 6. Covert versus overt strategy. Officials wanted to frame the photography as overt and scientific, aligning with Skylab's future plans. However, they also mentioned reviewing the images before public release, hinting at potential intelligence filtering. Conclusion. Yes, this document is strong evidence that Apollo missions, especially under the guise of a contingency Earth orbit mission, had a dual-use capability. While the primary purpose was public science and lunar exploration, the U.S. had well-developed backup plans to gather intelligence over rival nations, particularly China and the USSR, if circumstances allowed. This is a prime example of how space missions were often intertwined with geopolitical and surveillance strategies during the Cold War, even under NASA's civilian front.